dream. I was flying high, I was feeling fine. I won't be put in line, 'cause I'm ready to do my time.
Simply Financial with Christopher Calandra, Certified Financial Planner, is an innovative, comprehensive, informative, and cutting-edge podcast that discusses financial topics ranging from personal finance, economics, politics, and personal growth. Simply Financial will cover intriguing and thought-provoking questions so that the listener can simply increase their financial IQ.
Welcome. This is episode number 11, season 3 of the Simply Financial podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra. Today I wanted to talk about credit scores. Credit score is based on your past and your present credit transactions. And in today's society, a good credit score is important for a few reasons. It makes it easier to borrow money. When you do borrow money, it makes you eligible for lower interest rates. Increasingly, a good credit score can be a factor in things such as renting an apartment or a home. It could be a factor in a job search. A really good example of this is for people that are in the military or might serve the federal government and the Department of Defense. To get a security clearance, you need a certain credit score. So a credit score is certainly important. How is your credit score determined? So there are 3 major reporting agencies. They are Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And they use software developed by the Fair Isaac Corporation. And so that has become shorthand to the term FICO, FICO. So a lot of times, shorthanded, people will say, what's your FICO score? Or your FICO score is this. And it refers to, this is perhaps useless trivia, the software company that developed the programs that these credit agencies use. So we're talking about FICO credit scores. And the scores range from a low of 300 to a high of 850. And they're kind of categorized to excellent credit, very good credit, good credit. There's no exact breakdown, but typically 800 to 850 is going to be considered excellent, and 750 to 800 is going to be considered very good, and so on. It's not an exact terminology, but it's generally accepted. Those are pretty good categories to consider. I wanted to talk about some factors that could negatively impact your credit score, and it is wise to be aware, at least the basics of how this works. So if you have unpaid debts, common sense, right? That would be really bad for your credit score. If you had borrowed money on a car, a mortgage, personal loan, student loan, any time you borrow money, if you did not pay that off, that is going to have severe negative consequences on your credit score. The second thing is late payments. Those are also going to negatively affect your credit score. And anything that's it's going to stay on your credit for 12 to 24 months. And if you think about it, if you were going to think about lending money to somebody and they had a series of late payments, or even worse, no payments or unpaid debts, you would really take a hard look as to whether you wanted to extend a loan to them. And if you did decide to extend a loan to them, you would probably command higher interest and more stringent terms on the loan to protect yourself from the increased risk. Another thing that could negatively impact your credit score is errors on your credit report. Statistics are tough on this, but it's widely accepted that there are a lot of errors on credit reports. Credit card companies, for example, could report mistakes. They could attribute debt to you that might be for somebody else. It could be very innocent. It could be simply you share the same name. Actually, just last night I heard a story about this where if you had, John Jones Sr. and then John Jones is that individual's son, sometimes the names, because they're so similar, you could have debt assigned to the wrong person. An innocent mistake, but would have a negative impact on your credit score. And then a more nefarious example is identity theft. If you have somebody that has stolen your identity and secured credit on your behalf, that could show up on your credit report, and those errors could hurt your FICO score. Another thing that could hurt your credit score is credit utilization. It's basically ratios. So follow me on this. If I have, let's just use simply credit card availability. Let's say I have 2 credit cards that each have $10,000 limits, so I have $20,000 available credit. If I've used $19,800 of that available credit, I have a very high utilization ratio. I'm using a lot of my credit. And creditors are going to look at that a little nervously because you're using a lot of the credit that's available to you, and that might hint that you're not using debt responsibly, or you may be getting in over your head. So credit utilization is really important. They don't want to see someone using all of the available credit. Another thing that can negatively impact your credit score, although this is rather minor relative to late payments, unpaid debts, and errors, is if there's a lot of inquiries. If you're constantly trying to get debt and numerous companies, numerous creditors are checking your credit report, at least in the short term, your credit score will get dinged. So those are some of the factors that can negatively impact your credit score. I touched on this a moment ago, but I wanted to dig into it a little bit more. Some of the common errors that people are going to see on their credit report, and I also said that statistics are tough on this. I think most people who follow this industry do not have a high opinion of the 3 reporting agencies, and the error rate is widely accepted to be too high. They don't command a lot of respect. I don't give them a lot of respect. But let's talk about some common errors. Sometimes you can see accounts that you might have paid off, but they're still showing a balance. So an example of this is you had a car loan, you paid off the car loan, perhaps you paid it off just through your series of payments, maybe you made extra payments or a big payment and finished off the loan. Sometimes that will stay on your credit report showing a balance. And going back to the utilization issue, that could hurt your credit utilization if you have loans showing there that have been paid off. Sometimes there'll be falsified reporting from debt collectors. A creditor could just simply make a mistake, like I used the example of maybe it's a similar name or whatever the case is, they could report false information. There are also rules about when old debts and old late payments and things like that get dropped off of your credit. A lot of that involves if you filed bankruptcy. But just know, simply without getting too far into the weeds, that there are rules for when things ought to get dropped off. But sometimes they don't drop off the way that they should, and those errors could hurt your credit score. Sometimes you could have negative activity falsely attributed to you. It's kind of saying the same thing that I touched on before. Could be identity theft, could be name, could be an address-related thing, but they may attribute debt to you that isn't attributable to you. It's an error. And another example is there could be missing information. Now, you need to fix your credit scores, and I know we're all very busy and there's a lot of demands on our time, and I'm a proponent of having an investment plan, a financial plan, tracking your wealth. I mean, there's a lot, but I think this is one of the many, many things that you ought to pay attention to, and you need to fix your credit score when there are errors. And so the process, very simply, you could get more information about this. I'll give you some resources in a moment, but know that you can dispute errors or mistakes that you think exist on your credit report. And the agencies, all 3 of them work under these rules, is that they must investigate any dispute within 30 days. Additionally, they must provide written results of the investigation to you. If there was an error and they admit a mistake, they must correct the mistake, and they will send you an updated report showing you that the mistake was corrected. Know this too, is if they disagree, in other words, you make an argument and for whatever reason they do not admit an error, you still have, on top of what we already talked about, you have the option to add a 100-word consumer statement to your file. So if there is something in your file that's problematic, that needs some explanation, that might shine a light on something that you would like other potential creditors to see and know about what happened, you could put a consumer statement on file. If things go badly and you don't make headway, you also can elevate this and file a complaint with the government oversight organization, and that is a mouthful. It's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB. And you can go to the government who provides oversight on this and file a complaint. Final tip is you also should try and solve the error at the creditor level too. So what we're talking about is you going to Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion, but let's say one of your credit cards has improper reporting. So you could go to the credit agencies and try and get that fixed. That is a good plan. You can also go to the creditor, to the credit card company in my example, and try and get them to fix it as well. Sometimes that'll work, sometimes it will not, but I think that is a good final tip. I said I'd give you some resources. Know that every consumer is entitled to a free credit report from each of the three agencies, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, every 12 months. You could go on their website, you probably can call them, and you are entitled to a free credit report so you can monitor your credit. There's another site that you could visit. It's www.annualcreditreport.com, and you could get your free credit report there as well for free. Let me just add, as we begin to wrap up, there are a bunch of sleazier, scam kind of credit report stuff that I've seen on the internet as I've been to different sites and read different articles, pop-ups and things like that. Be really careful about that. You don't want to try and manage and pay attention to your FICO score only to fall prey to some problematic or disingenuous offer that you see on the internet. So be really, really careful with that stuff. But just to review, your credit score is very important. Makes it easier to borrow. You get better interest rates, lower interest rates, better terms. And in today's world, having a good credit score might help you if you're renting, looking for a job, and if you need a security clearance with the government. You want to have a higher score. You want to make sure that your credit report is accurate. If you find errors, try and fix those errors and take advantage of the free credit reports that are available to you each year to help you on your way to make sure that you don't have any problems. Thanks so much for listening today. Please subscribe to the Simply Financial podcast. We would love to have more listeners. So if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you know of anybody that might appreciate this information that we talk about each week, that'd be great. Plus, you could go to my website, www.elliottwealth.com. You could get more information about our services, how we help people win with money. And if you're not a client already, you could sign up for a complimentary consultation where we could discuss your situation, your goals and objectives, and how we might be able to help you win with money. Thanks very much. I'll be back with you very soon.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of SagePoint Financial Incorporated and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note the information being provided